people in the internet? This is BlastCast episode 9, and I have my friends here from BeatCircuit. I got Miles and Demian. Miles and Demian, how about you guys tell me where you started, how you, like, what is all about you?
Wow, great. Okay, so we started, years ago when we were kids. Started playing guitar in New York, where we grew up, and I started doing guitar for like a heavy metal hardcore band.
Yeah, nice.
And then my older brother D, he was a singer in like a death metal band. And I don't know, like, we hung out with Suffocation and
Oh, nice. I love
we
Suffocation.
knew the guitarist from that, Doug Cerrito, who was one of the original guitar players for that. So growing up, we grew up with like, the normal heavy metal, but then we wanted to get heavier and heavier and heavier. And I don't know, kind of make it short, through that process back in the day of like Fear Factory coming out and crossing over with industrial electronic music.
Yeah.
And then we were like, okay, who's Frontline Assembly? And then kind of it just opened up from there. So I'd say like our roots, we did school bands and stuff like that. But, my father was a guitar player. So we always grew up with music around the house from, John Coltrane to Alan Holdsworth to the Beatles, Mahavishnu Orchestra, and John McLaughlin, Weather Report. So we grew up with like good music. And and then if it wasn't that, my uncle was into, Bach and Beethoven, Chopin, Tchaikovsky, Messiaen, and
took me to the Nutcracker Suite at like 8 years old at the Radio City Music Hall. So
we
had some pretty wide exposure to music growing up.
Yeah, and then we transplanted from New York to Arizona back in 1994.
Okay.
And Arizona is a relatively new developing city, and we've been here ever since. And we're kind of rolled with the punches, trying to grow with the scene. 1999, actually, we started our Diencephalon production company,
which was basically, a DAW set up in our parents' garage at the time. And an ad in the Yellow Pages, just getting any kind of jobs we could. But, it's something to be said about real world experience, when you get a crash course in doing stuff that challenges your skill set. I think it helps to broaden that skill set. And we've just been learning ever since,
That's good. That's
everything
good.
From DJ mixes to, I had one guy that was like, oh, can you convert my old record collection to CD? And, this was before MP3s, mind you. And we're like, sure, so we pull out the vinyl player and get that set up. And back then we were just running it through a console. So we really, before, Waves had all their plugins and stuff. I mean, we would just try and clean it up just with EQ on a console. Kind of maybe beefing the the low end on it, maybe, clean out, decrackle it, clean the records as best as we could. Many aspects.
We did our first like MIDI programming on a Packard Bell Legend 386 computer back in the day with 12-tone Cakewalk was the manufacturer back then.
They're
still around today, so they've held up the test of time. We hear that you use Cubase.
I use Cubase. I actually started with the Sonar back in the day, like back in early 2000s, when it used to be like, I think Sonar 2 or 3 or something like that, Cakewalk. And that was great. I worked in it for like 3-4 years. And then I switched to Cubase since then. I don't know, like Cubase kind of like works the best for me since I have a huge template and it just handles everything I throw at it. I showed Miles like my like some of my videos with my template, and you can see it's like it just can handle anything, and I don't think any other DAW can do it as good as Cubase does it, because Cubase is more oriented towards like orchestral music, and it's just easier to do stuff like film composing and trailer music in Cubase. Well, at least for me. I know other people do it in like Logic or Pro Tools sometimes, but I'm a big supporter of Cubase. I've been with them for 15 years or something like that now. So yeah, it's a great DAW. Now I listened to some of your tracks actually on let me see, what's this website called? The Beatport.
Sure.
And they sound amazing. Like some of like the house and techno tracks, the mix is great. It's all like beefed up and it's like really good stuff. How did you guys so you transitioned from like heavy metal into electronic industrial, right? Like I always get, what do you call it, like interested in, because I come from metal background myself, right? Like I used to be in metal bands when I was, a teenager and stuff, and I transitioned into orchestral music. And I always feel like metal helps to transition in any kind of music, because like metal is already so complicated in its nature, and it's easy to just go into another genre and just kind of just keep going because you already know all this background stuff. So why don't you guys tell me like your experience from going from metal into like industrial and techno music? Like how did metal help you transition into those genres?
Sure. I think for us, it's foundational, just like for you.
Yeah.
And it depending on, when you're in a 4-piece, you're kind of relegated to that instrument. And you don't have so much say in the rest of it's all about compromise when you're in a band, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so really the transition from us moving from our sort of comfort zone in New York where we grew up and coming to a new state of Arizona where we knew nobody.
Mm-hmm.
And basically through that period, it was around that in the 90s where there was all these crossovers going and 9 Inch Nails and all these bands were getting big.
Yeah.
So for us, it came down to, wanting to expand our say in the music, thereby the parts that we were able to write. And we started to delve into sampling early on. I'm talking with a micro cassette recorder and 4-track tape stuff and splicing stuff. And it, there's sort of the limitations of the 4-piece band, which can really go as far as you want to take it musicianship.
Yeah.
But sonically, it's kind of limiting. And so we wanted to expand our kind of sonic palette. And this is what industrial really kind of spoke to us in that, wow, like if you listen to like Music Concrete, like Einstein's Neubauten, I mean, they're banging rocks on pianos and make it sound cool and interesting. And so that kind of opened the door.
Yeah, we definitely, I'd say, had a lot of influence, like from bands like Skinny Puppy, Front 2 for 2. But I think, with Skinny Puppy, it kind of influenced. I mean, like he was saying, just the sonic capability, and it kind of allowed us to go outside of that genre. And, you could still make something heavy and dark on an acoustic guitar and a flute. In the right key. So it was kind of like it allowed us to really paint more emotionally through the use of, any of those sounds. I mean, I remember having like an old Sony Walkman, and I would tune into the AM station and get some of those old frequency amplitude modulation from AM, run that through a distortion pedal and a phaser, and now you have a beautiful drone sound, and and that was kind of around, that would have been probably about 96. Then I got a shortwave, and I was like, I love these sounds because they kind of sound close to these analog synths. That time, we really didn't have that much exposure to. We didn't own any of them, and
funny sidebar, our first keyboard was a Casio SK1 when I was 11 years old.
Oh, wow. Nice. Yeah.
So.
and we still produce with it. Still use it.
Nice.
Sample, great keyboard.
I actually still have the Casio workstations here somewhere laying around. Yeah, that was my first ever keyboard, and still works.
Yeah.
That's a great one,
Yeah, and from there, it just like Dee was saying, then we started doing different genres, and we had a live studio set up where we had the drums set up. We had artists come by and they could set up their instruments and basically all record in one room. This was we were using Cakewalk, running multi-track recording sessions.
Sonar too. Sonar.
Yeah. And from there, it was like, you know, like Dee was saying earlier, going back to just that learning curve and that learning process. We had, you know, singer-songwriter come in with just her acoustic and her vocals. And so now we're touching on different genres and kind of learning how to engineer that and even write to that. So, you know, I went from doing grind beats with a hi-hat and snare at 30, you know,
playing with brushes.
30-second notes to playing with brushes, doing, you know, down tempo rhythms and polyrhythms. So it was, that's kind of, I guess, where it's how it transitioned through.
Yeah,
really it came about. I think, you know, just out of high school, we were evaluating and we were looking at going to a conservatory out here, for recording arts and sciences, and I think they wanted somewhere in the order of like $5,000 a semester to come in, you know, get your hands on. And I think it was a discussion we had amongst ourselves. Well, you know, it's good for the connections, it's good for the learning, or we could just use that money and invest it in our own gear and kind of crash course on our own time. And that's really what we did. And I think, again, going back to earlier, as far as doing different jobs, comfort zone helps kind of push you in the direction of learning new stuff.
I get it. Yeah, I'm a big believer in getting hands-on first before, you know, going to school and spending all that money on stuff that you might not even get any work off. You know, it's because I didn't go to school for any kind of music at all. I went to university for electrical engineering degree, and it's totally different. I mean, it still helped me understand the waves and stuff like that, like, you know, like certain electronic parts of it. But yeah, like I'm a big believer that you should just go out and try to get like as much work as you can locally and stuff, and just start going. Like that's the best experience you can get in the real world. You know, like you don't really need to, you know, listen to a professor teaching you ways that's like 20 years old. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. And at that time, the technology was growing so quickly that often professors couldn't keep up. He actually knew a couple of students that went to conservatory for a couple of years. They wound up being gophers and interns. You know, they never pursued it any further or got to sit behind a desk.
Yeah, I know. I have a couple friends too that like finished conservatories and they just ended up not really getting any work because nobody would hire them because they had no real world experience. And that's all that matters in like music industry, film industry. It's just you know, you just have to like get your hands dirty, get in there and just work your way out, and then you'll get somewhere like little by little, and you just get, you know, you're gonna start growing. Now I want to talk about, so you guys do samples, right, from like toys and found sound instruments. Like this is something really interesting to me. So do you put them in contact libraries, right?
We're in the process of
okay.
Library. Actually, by the end of this month, we are going to have a sample pack, a couple of sample packs available on Diencephalon. I can show you. I think I was telling you, talking last week about that guitar.
Oh yeah. You told me that. Yeah. I would love to see it.
So this kind of falls under, you know, our constant search for new sounds.
Yeah.
You know, at the time I was working at a guitar center, I think, in the warehouse, right? Because guitar center is a good place to work for musicians for discounts alone.
Yeah.
And while I was there, we had been working with it's called circuit bending, these you know, play school toys for kids. So one day on a whim, I brought one in to the shop.
Nice.
And plugged it into an amp.
This is like one of the offshoots of it. It's basically, it's just a big old
PVC.
Yeah, PVC
4-inch.
We just built a bridge, and I don't know if you could really hear it from here, but you know.
Oh wow, it sounds like a sitar, huh?
Sounds like a sitar.
There's no frets, but if you use a slide on it and a EBO, it's amazing. You know,
haunting drones you can get out of it for sure.
Yeah, so we've always just try to. So if we have it in our head, we'll try and make it.
So
wait, you guys have some kind of like a background noise coming in. Oh, there we go. It's out. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I know it's some kind of feedback. I was just like, whoa, no. All right.
Yeah, we, as far as the contact libraries, it's not something you want to just kind of do one at a time. We've been building up. I don't even know how many sounds we have at this point for it. Probably well over.
We've got terabytes and terabytes.
Yeah. So did you guys? So I'm actually trying to also build a library myself right now. I have I don't know if you see it, electric cello, which is like right there. Yeah. So what I've been doing, I've been like making weird drones with it. I've been putting it into Omnisphere and just like messing with it as much as I can. And yeah, I've been trying to build a contact library. And I tell you what, it's a freaking headache to figure out the whole coding part of it, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys like take a crash course or something of how to build it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Dave Hillowitz is a YouTuber who's done some shout out to Dave. Yeah, he's actually done some crash courses in creating your own contact library from scratch, and I've watched maybe half-hour video here, 45-minute there, and just to get the concept, because you're right, there is a lot to it. You need to be well prepared, depending on how deep you want to go with instrument. So we're talking round robins, we're talking level, layers, and but it started out, I think, for us. We long and short of it is our uncle had a piano in the house, a Winter upright that we kind of grew up with, and he moved to England back in the 80s, but the piano stayed with the family, and it went through heck, and it went through a move, and it actually went through a house fire, and so we kind of rescued it after the fact, and it's basically just a soundboard now, but as a way to kind of preserve it. And we got a really haunting sort of detuned sound to it, as you can imagine.
Yeah,
nice.
So we recorded round robins with that, and that's actually the first virtual instrument we're working on putting out there. Maybe putting that out to the Piano Book Library. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're an offshoot from Spitfire Audio.
Oh yeah, I've heard about them. Yeah, yep.
So I think they've got about 400, free libraries that people like us record and submit to the community.
Got you.
So we've used a lot of their sounds, and we feel it only appropriate to kind of give back.
Yeah.
First kind of attempt. Well, we'll keep you posted for sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I would love to check out your instruments.
We have an old Ensoniq EPS 16 sampler, and we've been like running test, sounds through that, which is great. You sample whatever sound you have, you put in the root key of the sample, and then it'll spread it across the board. And we'll have sounds that, whether it's we just sampled from the phone, and it could be of anything, clay, plant pots, tuba tar, instruments that we made, PVC flutes and stuff. And we'll just sample that, put it in and test it on that. And okay, this would work great. It's got, you have your full C6 to C1 octave scale, and it works, and with that, it's kind of cool for how would we incorporate the dynamics of the sound and the expression of the sound, which is neat with that. But it's definitely a different process from the contact, but it's, for us, it's like our testing station for that, and it's just a great sample,
like a proof of concept.
Yeah.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, so you guys are trying to get into the film composing world, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, kind of an inspiration for some of that, and honestly, the lockdown has forced us again, forced all musicians out of clubs, out of the live circuit, and into the studio. And so last year, we gutted and revamped the whole studio here just to freshen it up, like spring cleaning. And we kind of really evaluated, and over the time working on music, a lot of comments, friends and family have said, wow, I can hear that in a TV show, or I can hear of course everybody says that, and you got to take it with a grain of salt, but
yeah,
in kind of progressing in that direction, and in that we've started getting, symphonic libraries, and got the native instruments, MK,
MK complete. But I mean, and going back, like getting into that, I'd say that really started as a passion project back in 2011. We had, we did the main DAW we used was Acid and Soundboard.
Okay. Yeah.
We also had Vegas, and there was one vacation week I had, and I said to my brother and another brother of mine, I said, why don't we, just for fun, because back in the day when we were kids, with the VHS camera, we used to make these movies. We used to shoot reenactments of adventure scenes or ninja movies, whatever,
Sure.
And we thought, man, how much fun would that be to do it as adults?
Yeah.
So we had the editing software. We didn't have the cam. All we had was a Sony Handycam.
Right.
Okay.
Any VHS tape. And we started meeting up every Thursday for about 3 months. We wrote a script. We wrote the dialogue. We wrote a storyboard. Went and scouted out locations to shoot it. And one weekend we got a bunch of friends together and we made it happen. We shot for, all day. Mind you, this was, it was just a passion project in the sense, just, having fun with it. And when we got, when all the editing was done, we were like, this needs a score. So we had never done it. So we said, all right, let's write a track for this and score to it with our and then we put it on YouTube, and it just kind of sat. It was kind of like, okay, it was something that we did, and then coming back through, then got back into doing BeatCircuit, doing bands, and producing that music, and I think it just, even with that, the last album we just released, it was a concept album called Galactic Warfare.
Nice.
And I was experimenting with using like string quartet sounds and just giving more of that dynamic, cinematic feel to follow along with the imagery of the sound. And it was like, man, we really need to do it. It's fun. And then getting into school, getting students films and interpreting the sound that you get from their image and from their pictures,
the feeling that you
get, the emotion. So that kind of led us into that. That led me into that. I'm in school right now, just learning the film industry side of it. We've got enough experience in the sound department, but just understanding how films work. Your above the line, below the line budgets. How to green light, being dependent upon, your producer, your director that you might work with. Their pitch will get accepted to be. But not only that, but just like set etiquette and how to, working with the director, trying to hear their image through their vision. So.
Yeah, I know it's always it's a bit tricky with working as a composer for films, because you have so many different people pitching in and throwing their ideas of what things should sound like, and sometimes people don't really articulate that their ideas as they like. How can I explain that? So like sometimes I get emails from producers that they say, okay, so there's a scene, somebody's sad, I want the music to sound blue. And I'm like, what the hell is blue? Like, so you always have to interpret it. Like, it's kind of like you're like a psychiatrist, or like always trying to figure out what other people are thinking, what they have in their brains, like what kind of image they got. And it's a lot of a trial and error, I guess. And like what I like to do is, if I get a script early on, I just like to bash out like 10 or 11 demo tracks right away within like 3-4 days, like okay sounding demo tracks, and just send them to director and see which one he likes or she likes, whatever. and kind of like try to like persuade them. Okay, so this might be the sound of the score, like of the film. So are you sure you like this? So I always try to figure that out early on. So then my work is easier. Like when the film is actually edited, and then I get the final cut of it, and then locked picture. And so I can just like bash in and just like start grinding, put in music to it. But it's definitely really complicated, and it's like you have to like read people's minds in a way all the time. It's like when you make music on your own, right? Like when you're just publishing albums, you produce music that you like. It's always easier to just like publish it and kind of like forget about it. With film score, it's like you produce music, you write a bunch of different ideas, and then most of them might be like red lighted, like they can just like throw them away. So you have to rewrite it again and again. So I always say, always try to get director and producers on your side early on, so they don't come after you like at the end of the, when there's a due date in like a week. And then they're like, you know what? I don't really like this score. Like, why don't you change it all from the beginning? And I'm like, that's gonna take. Yeah, like I had like one of my things that I always say is like when I worked on Mermaid's Tale. It's a film. It's a kids movie, produced by Universal, and it was like on Netflix and Hulu for a while. And that score, I think I did 120 minutes of music on it. Wow. Only about 79 minutes of music got actually into the film.
Yeah.
And it's like Disney style music, a lot of like fast orchestral passages and stuff. Like there's a lot of like key changes happening, a lot of cuts and stuff. And I remember like that thing, they gave me about 3 weeks to finish the score or something like that. So I banged it out in like 2 weeks, and then the last week was review from producers and directors. And I remember like it was such a panic-inducing time because I didn't really know if they're gonna like it at all. And I mean, luckily for me, like they liked better half of it, and then the lesser half, like the other 40 minutes, were thrown away because they were like, yeah, it's okay, just let's leave it, like but still, it's like it's a very different process to write for picture compared to just producing music on your own, just publishing music that you like. Because you always have to kind of like, you work for a picture, so you have to please the picture, you have to please the directors and producers, and that's the most difficult part. Like I feel like writing music for film, like writing music is easy, but the hard part is to get it accepted by other people who worked on a film, because everybody's invested. Like every film, everybody's passionate, everybody's invested, everybody's a little bit of a hothead. At the end, when there's a lot of egos. There's always going to be egos. So it's that's the thing, is like I see a lot of composers that are just coming out of schools, and they think that they know it all in a way. Like I mean, obviously I don't know it all. Nobody really knows it all. But yeah, and it's a big learning process. And I feel like a lot of students that just graduated from conservatories, and they're like, yeah, okay, so this is how the score should sound like, and they always get big egos, and they always have to get put down in a way by the real world.
I don't mean bashing anybody that's gone to conservatory. If you have,
no, I know, yeah, I'm not bashing anybody, but it's like I've seen it happen so many times.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a lifelong learning process.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And you never really know everything, and that's...
Yeah, you never do, yeah.
But I think working with the producers and the directors, you almost kind of want to work with them like they're part of a band.
In a way, yeah.
Or they're the artists that you're producing.
Right.
You have to cater the music to.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that other person needs to be happy and accept the work that you've put out.
Yeah.
But speaking of films, did you do you went to the LA Film Festival yesterday? Did you go to
it was an online thing. It's actually funny. I registered for it, And then I talked to some people that were there, and I just kind of like I just did it just to make a few connections with the directors that did the films in there, and that's it. I didn't actually like sit and watched all the films, to be honest, because I had like a lot of stuff going on yesterday, and I went out to like a, what do you call it, like a friends gathering too, so I didn't really have time. But yeah, I mean, I usually attend those conferences like here and then when I see them, just to get connections. Like that's all about it.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a you know, half of my time I spend is getting connections, getting to know people, befriending people, just trying to see. It's like planting seeds, you know. Like like for example, I have a horror film from a connection that I met like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Right now, like I'm working on. So it's yeah, it's just planting the seed. You know, it takes a long time to get work, and it takes even longer to get work that pays well.
Sure.
So yeah, so it's all about just trying to get out there, just trying to put the name out there. I mean, that's just kind of like how I roll with this. Like, you know, I just put Tim Blast everywhere I can go, just so people can hear it, and then like they're, oh yeah, I've heard of Tim Blast. Like, you know, like I go to conferences. Well, I used to go to ASCAP convention every year.
Cool.
Are you guys with BMI or ASCAP?
We're with both, actually.
Well, you're with both. Okay.
Registered with ASCAP as songwriters. We are just recently signed up for BMI because we're also publishers.
Publishers. Okay. Yeah, I used to be with BMI early on, and then when I changed my name to a stage name, which is Tim Blast right now, I joined ASCAP as a publisher and a songwriter. But yeah, like I it's kind of funny because like I still get royalties from both BMI and ASCAP, and they're kind of confused between each other. Like, are we sending the same exact royalties twice? I'm like, no, you're not. Like, one is for songwriter, and the other one's for publisher. It's like, it's just, you know. But yeah, so I used to go to ASCAP convention every year, and that's kind of like how I met a bunch of other composers, wannabe directors, you know, or people who are trying to get into, you know, any type of like film or TV or like YouTube shows and stuff like that. And I feel like that's a thing that you like everybody should do. Just get out there, try to put your name out there, and see if it sticks somewhere. You know, that's the best thing you can do right now.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, and there's so many more opportunities developing with these mergers of, you know, Paramount buying the streaming services, and I think Netflix just signed a deal with Sony. So now Sony has a streaming platform for their feature films and stuff. So, you know, and it's, you know, in that aspect, I mean, there's so many thousands of shows coming out on Hulu and Netflix, and it's really kind of, in a sense, opening up the floodgates for production. Of course, now that we're kind of slowly getting out of this pandemic, it's going to open up and progress more and more. And just like you said, just networking and getting your name out there, and also,
because it's like pandemic was a curse and a blessing in disguise in a way for a lot of people. So you know, like a lot of people just stayed home and did nothing, but then a lot of other people stayed home and stayed productive. And those productive people right now are getting out, and they're, you know, they have scripts ready. They're like, okay, let's just start filming. So I see more and more filming happening here in LA right now. Yeah, like because the town was just shut down for over a year, and it's finally reopening. Everybody's getting their vaccines, so everybody's not afraid anymore. And it's hopefully it's gonna be better. And I feel like this is the time where you have to go out and reach out to every single director out there, see if they need a composer. Because like a lot of people kind of like just stop doing it, and there's many more productions are going to be happening right now. So I feel like a lot of composing jobs are going to come back into, you know, to the market.
I agree. Well, that's just it. And I think you're right in the sense that a lot of artists, and especially, you know, bedroom musicians like us, basically quarantine was like, okay, I'd rather be working at the studio at home anyhow, you know. So there you go. People got busy, and now's the time to start getting out there and making those connections.
Yep. Now's the time. Now let's talk about your. So I see you guys have a great collection of synths, which is amazing. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah. What's your favorite? Like, do you have modular synths at all?
We have a small modular setup.
Small modular.
We just started going down the modular hole, probably last year.
Okay.
So, but you would know this, like, as a guitarist. Every guitar's got its own voice, got its own sound it can do.
Yep.
And so the same thing holds true for especially analog synthesizers.
Mm-hmm.
Every layout is different, every schematic, the components that they used were different. And so they've all got their own voice. I mean, some of them are classic, if you mention a Moog, everybody knows what a Moog sounds like. Even if they don't, they have that idea in their head. If you mention an 808, everybody knows what an 808 kick sounds like,
Yeah.
So they've really become standards. And, but, it's been a long time building, and just little by little, searching in pawn shops and, music stores, places that didn't know. Two of our best finds were, we had a neighbor who worked at a church, and he knew we were into music, and he said, why don't you come over? We have a couple of old keyboards sitting in our basement. So, we thought maybe like a Yamaha organ kind of thing. And we got there, and there were two Moogs. And we said, okay, nice. Well, what do you want? He said, just give us a donation. So I think for, $200, we walked out with two classic Moog synthesizers.
That's nice.
We like Demian was saying, you have analogs. I mean, we have analog synthesizers. We have digital synthesizers that are like, that emulate that analog filters and analog circuitry. And getting into the modular stuff, we've been, it's another way of patching your own sound and creating your own patch. I've got an old Roland XP80, which was a big popular board for a lot of scores through the 90s and stuff. Like, there's times I'll watch like CSI Miami, and I'm like, oh, that's from the Roland XP80 sound.
I got that sound.
I got that sound. And you could really develop and kind of build your own patches and sounds on that, but you're also limited to the digital processing chip in it that creates those waves. The modular, it's a whole rabbit hole. I mean, you can run multiple, more than three. I think on our setup right now we have maybe 7 oscillators. So it's almost like creating a nice 7-voice patch. And I getting in with soft synths and stuff, which are great, and they're really good at emulating a lot of these. But for me, there's just something about that tactile ability to just touch it and make that sound. Just walk up to it and play it and tweak the knob, adjust the sliders, and that you don't get with soft synths.
And there is a certain randomness factor that comes from the actual raw voltages being manipulated by hardware that they try and duplicate. They do really well with soft synths, but it's not entirely the same. And, the warmth that you can get from an analog circuit and saturation, exceeds what you could do digitally. Now, again, these are close, but, it's old school, new school.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times working on the modular setup, we're recording. As soon as I turn the system on, we're recording whatever sound we get because of that inability to maybe reproduce that sound. Because there's so many variables. And I mean, you could tune the oscillators but depending on the oscillator, if you leave it on for a few days, it might slide out of tune and you have to try and repitch it. And at that point, the timbre of it's changed and the character of that sound's changed. So we're always recording any sound. I mean, almost, and not even just in the studio, but on our phones. The ability to have a good quality stereo mic recorder on your phone. You go out and actually it was funny. Just was it last weekend? We there's an airport not too far from
municipal, small.
And we were up in that area, and I said, you know what, let's go check it out and go see what flights. And you know, there are all these private jets and stuff taking off, but they're jets, and man, we just set the phones up. And you could get really close to the runway. The runway.
Literally walk on it.
And we just sat there for about 30 minutes and got great sounds of jets taking off, propeller planes, which is cool for I guess you'd call it Foley work, you know. And
you can use it as is, but we like to use it in sound design, and you know, stuff like that makes great raw data to process for sci-fi vehicles or whatever your heart desires. Basically, you can.
I know. I totally agree. Yeah, like my phone is my best friend. Like every time I get an idea or something, it's so easy to just go into record and just like bang it out real quick, and then you come back to the studio and just do it.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, like I wish I had a phone that like could record like back 15 years ago, because like you know, when you have ideas happening, you have to do it right now and then, or you'll forget it in like 2 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. So the phones are great. Also, like actually, I have done Foley work on one of the projects back, I don't know, like 3-4 years ago. I used the Boom Effects library. I think that's what it's called. I don't know if you guys heard of it. You've heard of it.
I've heard of Boom. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. So it's basically like I think 3 terabytes of random sounds, whatever sounds you want, like machine sounds, jets, door knocks, and stuff like that. And I remember it was actually quite interesting. So, and then I worked on a horror film, like a few months after that. And I took those ideas of like taking those little sounds or recording my own sounds and just putting a bunch of reverb, chorus, and phaser, all type of stuff, you know. So what I ended up doing, I put a condenser mic into a Amazon box, like a shipping box, right? And I started banging on it, and it just created, and I pitched it down like 2 octaves down, and it just made this like weird monster noise, and I just put a bunch of reverb, and that was like the score for the film. Just
that's awesome.
And I remember like the director was just laughing at it. Yeah, and he's like, "What instruments did you use?" I'm like, "Yeah, just like shipping box." He's like, "What do you mean shipping box? That's a shipping box?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just shipping box. You know, just sampled it, just you know, use it as a synth in a way." But yeah, it's like that's the thing.
Something to be said about. I mean, inspiration comes. You don't know where it's going to come from anywhere. You know, just got to be ready for it, like you said. Capture it, and that's why we've been recording again since back in the day with micro cassettes up to today with phones, and just gathering our own personal library. You know, A, for use on our own projects, but now B, going forward. Putting some of it out there for other people to enjoy and use, you know.
So now, how did you transition from film scoring, getting into the trailer scores?
Score.
What's the difference between the process?
So with that, I went to an ASCAP convention. Well, I think I told you the story about how I met like Robbie Neville and all that stuff. I'm not gonna go into deep
that's cool.
on mine. But anyway, so he kind of like pushed me into trailer music back like 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. I don't remember anymore. And I just started banging out I think I did 17 trailer tracks. They sound really bad. That album is on my Spotify. It's called Trailer Blast Volume 1 or whatever. You can listen to it. It sounds bad as heck, but it got some placement. So I took that album to the ASCAP convention and ended up meeting an agent, basically, that works with library, right? Like that pitches stuff to TV and movie trailers.
Nice.
And yeah, like from there, I was able to get better. So I same thing. I kind of got lucky with it. I met the right connection right away before jumping into a cheap music library, because there's a lot of libraries out there that are always looking for composers, but there's a lot of them that are not really getting good placements. They're getting like crappy. I mean, any placement is a good placement, but it's like there's a difference between TV, like national television placement compared to like a some nobody knows channel, whatever, So anyway, going into that, so I started banging out trailer tracks, and what was happening, I realized how bad I was at it. And that's what my agents used to tell me too. Like, dude, like your tracks, they have potential, but they're freaking bad. Like you have to work on it. So I just kept, pushing myself to the limit. I learned about, cause like the mastering and mixing for trailer music is different compared to scores. Cause with scores, you have orchestral sounds and stuff, and it's sort of in background. You don't really have to have the best mix in the world, in a way. So they, directors, producers, they kind of just accept it as is in a way. And then I send it to the music editor, and then they usually just like play with the EQ a little bit so it matches with the dialogue and stuff. So it doesn't like interrupt anything. With trailer music, it has to be right in your face, really low, heavy, like music basically. And the mix has to be perfect. Every single detail has to be perfect, and because you're competing with professionals that are, been doing it for a long time, and they have like a different approach to it. And I would say trailer music it's harder to do than film scoring, or at least for me, because with film scoring, I kind of just work fast. With trailer music, like with film score, I can do 70 minutes of music in like a week. Easily. Trailer music, I can do 3 minutes of like music in a week.
So that's the difference. Like, the pop music of the film industry.
Yeah. That's kind of what it is. Yeah.
But is it because it seems like you're taking the concept of a score and just mashing it down, but I think there's more to it than that. I think
it's definitely more to it. So it needs to be a little simpler, but yet complicated at the same time. You have to have what people say, it's like your trailer track is a 3-act piece of music. Okay. You have the intro, which is kind of slow building up, then you have a middle section that's kind of like somewhat energetic, and then you have the culmination, like the end section, which has to just blast as loud as it can with everything playing, and it just have to like the drums have to be like like it all has to build up. Yeah. So that was my mistake going into trailer music, because I would just take it. I was taking an approach, like a film scoring approach, right? I would just make it as one piece of a cue, right? And I would kind of like go up and down, because like in my film scoring, I really love switching keys, and I love to kill everything and then bring it back in, and just do this stuff. With trailer music, it has to be like a steady. When you see the sound form, like sound wave form, right? Like it has to be like a steady build up. And it also, for the trailer video editors, they have to see the spikes in the track, so they can like edit it quickly. So that's why all the drums have to be a certain frequency. The way I mix the drums, I boost 200 hertz and then also boost 3K, just so it kind of like spikes up a little bit, so that's how they see it on a waveform, and then they could just like cut it with my music, because the way it is, like they get the music first, then they cut the video.
Right. So that's a good question, actually. It leads me to when you're producing one of these, you produce the full, say, 3-minute theatrical trailer music, and the music editor will actually compile it down to the minute and 30-second spots that are going to go on TV. Okay, got you.
So
are you providing spikes that gives him a easy transition?
Yeah, it's an easy transition for them. Yeah. So basically, it's that's also the difference. When you work for film, you get the film first, then you write the music. Trailers, they get the music first, and then they edit the trailer to your music in a way, so it matches. Yeah, because the way, like, I have a couple friends that edit trailers, and like they always kind of like have 7 or 8 different versions with 7 or 8 different tracks, and they just send them all, and then whoever the marketing supervisor, I forgot the name of the people that do it, like marketing something, they just look at it and see whichever one hits the most. Yeah, so there's a lot of competition. With me, my agents used to be like, okay, cool. So we got this placement that's like on hold right now. I'm like, what do you mean on hold? They're like, well, you're competing with like 11 more tracks. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, so it's kind of like you just kind of like wait for it. If it hits, it hits. Like I have a few placements that I have no idea where they are. Like I just get royalties for it, and like my agents are like, okay, so you got placed on NBC. I'm like, where? And they're like, we don't know. Right. We don't know. We just got placed. Like, look for it.
Hey, yeah, man. As long as the check clears the bank, you're good.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So like for me, as a composer, like I just want to see it somewhere. But then I'm like, like after a while, you kind of get used to it, and you're like, okay, let's just. If I see it, I see it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and it's what is it?
Well, that kind of goes into what you were describing earlier about planting seeds.
Planting seeds.
You never really know what it's going to grow into until the fruit starts falling on your house.
Yeah. But talking about trailer music is again, it's a totally different beast compared to the film scoring. Like film scoring is one thing. It's it's a little simpler. I feel like trailers is more complicated. It's harder to get into, and but it's also both of them worth it. In a way. Like as a musician, like just to get in, just to see your music get into places, it's already like worth it for you. Yeah. But yeah. Also, I would just want to say too, like about trailer music. A lot of people use the same exact samples. So right now, I have this thing where every time I watch a trailer, I know exactly what contact library they used. I know exactly what drums. It's always freaking Heaviosity Damage is in there. Impact Soundworks is always in there. And the rule is when a new library comes out, you just have to bang out a bunch of tracks with those sounds, so you get so you'll be the first one with the sounds in there.
Yeah, that's the game we play, man.
Yeah. It's like every new sound you have to be the first one, because there's a lot of people who are doing it, and there's the market is so saturated with trailer music tracks right now, and it's the competition is just out of this world.
Yeah, and you can find yourself easily spending a year's salary on libraries alone just to keep up.
Oh yeah. I know. Yeah.
So
I mean, you can still, you can still write it off on taxes, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. It's freaking awesome. Expensive. Yeah. Like that's what I'm, sometimes I get directors, messaging me, and that's why I always have to explain, well, whatever quote you're giving me, it's not going to be enough, because, trust me, it's like, it's expensive to be a composer. If we own everything that we have, it's not like we just, go out and rent stuff. It's like we just own it. Like all the libraries, you have to buy them, all the soft effects, all that stuff. You just have to keep like spending money on it to get somewhere, which is it's an intense concept, to be honest. Because like any other workspace, in a way, you just kind of like get a job and you get paid.
Right.
But with this, you don't get a job, you spend money, and then maybe you'll get a job. Like if you're lucky, you get a job.
Yeah.
That's how it is. Unfortunately,
it's
but that's
the
truth.
life of an artist, right? It's the life of a musician, and that's the passion that we have. And, we'll do it regardless of, just because of the love of doing it. Of course, at the end of the day, obviously, paycheck keeps the lights on, keeps the mortgage paid. Yeah, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah, I think part of our way of getting around some of those added expenses is to just make the sounds ourselves.
Yep, that's a good way. Yep.
And there was a month ago, it was about a month ago, I had this harebrained idea, because I've got a little camera rig set up, and the mobile field recording set up that syncs up, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to just get close up, good high quality samples of just breaking shit.
Yeah.
And I said, where can I do that at? Like, I can't just sit in the middle of the street and just start breaking windows and stuff. I said, let me call some junkyards and see if they're cool with me showing up. So I called a few, and some of them were like, yeah, we don't know about you. I found this one guy in Tempe, and he said, what do you mean? I said, just because you have stuff I can break and record it. He said, sure.
Yeah.
So we went down. He goes, we just got a beat up Mercedes Benz.
Okay.
And it still has all the windows on it, so you can have at it and smash that up if you like. So we thought, hell yeah. So we went there and spent about 2 hours and mic'd every aspect of it from, brought different hammers and sledgehammers and bats. And man, in one day, I think we probably got over 1,000 different hits and sounds and crashes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that too is kind of developing that unique sound that's not in any of those libraries, and being able to produce that and make that, like, what the hell is that? What library?
That was actually a 200-gallon water drum.
Yeah, we just, it's
nice.
Sometimes, we're don't get me wrong, we've spent a lot of money on Spitfire libraries and native contact libraries. Even back in the day, man, buying CD libraries before they were sound libraries online, and we still even use those sometimes.
If somebody comes in for an old school hip hop beat, we're probably going to grab the
we'll grab
East
vinyl,
West, or vinyl and rip on, but something about the sounds.
Yeah.
Now, we have actually question in live chat right now. Our Porter81 is asking, can you guys talk a little bit about composing music for video games? Have you guys ever thought of doing video games, or have you done a video game?
Yeah, we've thought about it. We've put together some quick Foley work, and then kind of done some short. But no, we've never been contracted to score any of that.
Our understanding of it is completely different from what we do as composers or as just music writers. Is linear music, starts here, plays, ends here, and the concept of doing non-linear music, which is with video games, it's sort of this elastic loop that changes as the players move throughout the situation. So we've done a lot of loop music over the years, and so it is something that we're capable of. We'd love to get involved. We just haven't gotten that knock yet. And the other side is we need to put up some sort of demo reels illustrating this stuff. I know people are doing that nowadays on YouTube. So
like I've done a few mobile games where it's kind of similar to film scoring in a way, but so what happens there is a software called Wise. It's a WWISE. I'll put it in the live chat for the stream, but basically I got hired to do a couple of mobile games like 2 years ago, something like that, 3 years ago maybe. Awesome. And they told me, okay, so like every sound is getting coded into that Wise software. So that's how they put sounds in music. In games, whatever sounds they have. It's basically it's a weird software, to be honest. Like coming from Cubase or stuff, it's similar to just putting tracks on like audio files on tracks and stuff. But it's also in 3D in 360. Yeah, audio kinetic wise. There you go. Thank you, Janik. All right. Anyway, it's I learned some of it. I'm not a pro at it at all, but that kind of helped me understand what kind of like approach should I take to write music for video games. Because as you said, it's a lot of loops, so all of your tracks have to be somewhat loopable, like almost perfect loops, but also what they ask for is stems. So I would write a track that's a loop, right? And then I will break it into 25 stems, right? So I'll have the flutes going, I have the brass, I have the strings, the drums. Every drum is a different stem, right? Like everything is a different stem. And they would take it as is and they would like mix it by themselves in the game. So for example, I did I did get a placement in a Cyberpunk 2077.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like same thing. So I wrote a track. It's called Cyberjunk on my Triller. No, which album was it? I think it's in a World Ender album. You guys can look it up on Spotify. Anyway, so same thing. I sent them all the stems And the only thing that made into the game was the synth and a little bit piece of the drums. So like not entire track made it, but only like a little bit. And they also messed with it too. They slowed it down a bit, which is weird. Like I was playing the game and I kept like looking for the track. I'm like, where the hell is the track? And then finally I found it. I'm like, that sounds like my track, but it doesn't really sound like my track. And like yeah, and it's so funny because like I have a friend that actually worked on Cyberpunk, so that's kind of like how I got into it. And
Nice.
and I kept like bugging him, like, okay, so where's my track? Like, where is it in the game? And he's like, don't bug me, bro. Like I'm busy. Like I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. Like we just put it somewhere. I don't know what it is. And yeah, so they just take it as it is. They mess with it. They mess with stems, and it's almost like a licensing deal rather than, because there's actual composers on the game, and my music was like an additional music for it. So it's just like an extra stuff that just threw into it. Yeah. So video games is a little different beast. It's a lot of loopable stuff. Unless it's like a story-driven game where my friend Nuno Malo, he's like my neighbor here, also a composer. He did an NBA 2020 game. He scored it.
Wow.
And I remember, so with him, that was like a weirdly story-driven game. It's like really cinematic. And they treated it as a film because he scored all the cinematic moments, and then they used, I believe like they used some of his music for the actual gameplay, but they used like stock library music for the gameplay. But like most of the cinematic moments, and it was, he said like it was kind of like working on a film. Like there's no difference. He got the material, he got all the video, and he just scored the video to it. So it could go either way. Yeah. So it's either loopable stuff that you just license to people, or you can just like score it as a film. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we'd probably approach it that way. I mean, looking into it, we mentioned Wise, and that's like almost a whole nother world. I mean, separate from Pro Tools or audio.
Yeah, it's different.
With the encoding of the action, so each time you draw your weapon, it creates that sound and whatever footsteps. So I mean that's almost a full-time job, just editing in that software.
I think I've watched about 3 or 4 hours of tutorials on YouTube, and yes, it is. It is doable. You just need the time to dedicate to sit down and learning it.
Yeah. Now take it to the next step. I am slowly working on a VR game for VR. So that's even worse and more headache.
Now it's all in 5.1.
Dude, it's the mix has to be 11.1.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 11.1, but also in 360, and it's in Cubase there's a feature. I completely forgot what it's called. Basically, I can connect my VR headset to Cubase, and I can So basically, when I play music, I am able to hear, like, turn my head, and the music also turns with me, or it stays in place. Like I can kind of like control that, and that's a totally different headache. I mean, I started doing it like last year, but with the pandemic, they kind of slowed down the development of the game. So I'm waiting for them to send me, more things to work on, but it's slowly coming up. I think it's gonna come out like 2022, maybe something like that. But yeah, that's even worse.
I can't imagine.
We will imagine.
A friend of ours bought the Oculus setup, and
that's what I have. Yeah,
and I have like, I guess vertigo or motion sickness, and I tried it, and I may have had too many glasses of wine before I put it but it is unbelievable. And I wonder if eventually that world will merge with the movie world.
Oh, it already has
a whole new market for industry jobs. And
there's already movies that are done in VR. There's already scores that are done, but right now, so far, it's the music is in stereo for the films. Because because there's already so much stuff going on. They just want to keep because a lot of people, when they do it in VR, they just have their headphones or like the speakers in the headset on. So the music has to be stereo. But like for the games, like for the game that I'm working on, it's 11.1, which is, I tell you, man, it's like mixing in stereo is so easy, and then 11.1 is just such a mess. Like all your little mistakes, they show up like nothing. Yeah, it's like I had to fix a flute sound that was perfect in a stereo environment, but then it was way too high pitchy in 11.1, and then I brought the high end down, and then I switched back to stereo, and then you can't hear the flute at all. Wow. And then I'm like, what do I do with it? Like, what do what the?
Yeah, that's a challenge.
I know. It's I spent so many hours, and I just ended up getting rid of the flute completely, because I'm just like I don't know what to do with it. And I emailed so many people, and they're like, well, just try to mess with your high end. I'm like, well, I'm trying to mess with it. It either breaks it, or it makes it louder, or it just like completely destroys it. Like I have no idea what to do.
Flute's a tough instrument too, anyway, because it's meant to stand out above, an orchestra. Yeah. And so if you've got it blended, but it's on its own channel somewhere sitting off in 3D space. That could be like a songbird in your sure.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. Like I always feel like I always have trouble with like high pitched instruments, like in the mix. Because it's always, like flutes, piccolos, even like marimbas, anything that's like super high pitchy. Like I always find myself not knowing what to do with them in a way, and I still can't really like. I mean, I use a lot of flutes and clarinets and stuff in my scores all the time, but like in orchestral music, it's a little easier because you have brass and strings also taking high end, so they kind of like create a mess. Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it a mess, but anyway, like
a beautiful mess.
Yeah, beautifulness. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it kind of like they fix each other in a way, but like when it comes to 11.1, or it's a beast. I don't know how people do it, and I wish people wouldn't have done it, but it's out there.
I've been messing with Fabfilter Pro Q lately on those higher tracks. And really notch filtering down those dominant harmonics, so they're not poking out when I do a mix too much, right? And you run the risk of, on the one hand, it can sound too fragile if you take out, because we usually will run it through a high pass because there's no low end there. But so you run the risk of it either sounding too fragile or, like you said, kind of disappearing. So it's like trying to find the happy medium where you can hear it, but it's not ear piercing. And it blends. So I feel your pain, my friend.
Yeah, actually, talking about Fabfilter, one of my favorite things now is the Fabfilter MB, which is a compressor. It's a dynamic compressor. It's kind of like it works like C4 by Waves, right? Or the hardware version of C4, obviously. But it's kind of like it compresses things that you don't want in certain parts of the song, which is kind of cool. I mean, how are you guys with dynamic compressors?
We love Isotope, Ozone 9 we're on now, and for mastering exclusively since I think version 6, which is 7-8 years ago now.
Some of the compressors that UA offers us, we'll utilize those.
Well, the UA stuff, because we just got the Apollo Duo last year at USB. And so it's great because it handles a lot of the processing on board, which cleans up your system. Yeah. So we've been running a lot of stuff in real time on the compressors, just tracking into the system.
Yeah.
This way we've got a nice warm compressed signal right out the gates, rather than having to do all that stuff in post. And so it's been working really good, but there's definitely a trick to it, because when you bake in effects, there's no going back, as you know. So it's got to be right like the first time.
But with Ozone, though, like what I've noticed is it just beats it up too much, and it doesn't give you enough headroom. So going through that,
does that,
2 dB or 3 dB to be able to.
I find that Ozone also messes up the stereo field a little bit. Like stereo image. So for example, for trailer music, it has to be, what I do is I mix the basses all in the middle, and then everything else has to be as spread as possible in stereo image. But I feel like every time I use Ozone, 8 or 9, like 7 was actually good. Like 8 or 9, they just kind of like bring the stereo field closer a little bit. I guess with compression and stuff. But I always find myself like enraged with it sometimes, because I'm like I want it to be more stereo,
spread out. Yeah,
right. Spread out. Yeah.
And then you have to rely on their imager within there, which works on frequency. It's kind of like dynamic compression, but stereotizing, and you got to put a little bit more back in just to get back to normal, it seems.
I do I use a what do you call it, the stereo enhancer plugin in Cubase for that, and I usually put it like before and after Ozone, just to get that high end back, like left and right. That usually helps. Also, so I got the UA stuff too. I have the Apollo X6. I mean, it's been great so far. I mean, it gave me some headache in the beginning, as all UA products do. I feel like.
Same here.
I know it's so funny how, I mean, obviously UA is a great company and it gets a lot of praise, but it's always weird to set it up in the beginning. You always get all, complicated. Yeah, but I love their Little Labs Voice of God plugin. So that's what I'm using on my mic right now. Actually, if you guys hear it, like my voice is bassy as hell, right?
Yeah, that's great.
You sound like you should be on the radio.
I was thinking it was the SM. Was that the 5.7B?
It's a SM7B. 7B. Yeah. So I run it through a cloud lifter that gets rid of all the noise, and it beefs up the gain a little bit. But then I add the voice of God on it, and that thing, dude, I seriously don't know how it works. I just put it all the way up to 10, and it just boosts the best bass frequencies in the world, and it just beefs up the whole thing. Like I use it on pretty much everything. On my guitars, my drums, my bass, my in trailer music, like every bass sound has the voice of God, and it just creates this oomph that no other soft synth plugins can create. I don't know what it does. Like this magic brown note that it just
magic. I've been
that's cool.
Making our library recording, say, as he was talking about earlier, percussion stuff at a scrapyard. I find I've been running the deeper stuff through Wave's Renaissance bass, our bass, and that kind of introduces a sub of your dialing. I think it goes from like 40 to 120 or something.
Yeah,
but it adds that much needed thump, into the transients, and having fun with it. So I hear your voice of God. We need to look that up for sure.
Yeah. Look it up, because here I'll show you the difference. So this is with the little voice of God thingy, and this is without. So now it's without it. So you see the difference?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is my natural voice, and then I add the voice of God, and then I sound like this. It's just such a magical little thing, and I love it, man. It's like that's the only thing I bought the UA stuff for. It's just the voice of God. Like a friend of mine showed it. I'm like, holy shit, I'm getting it.
Plugins are great. Like I think I was telling you a couple weeks ago, like with Motu, it was just a straightforward interface. There's really no plugins for the Motu, the 828. But getting into this world, it's like, wow, it's a whole nother world of plugins. And it's almost kind of like once you go back, once you go to that, you can't go back. But we can't. We're not. Like we still love all our VSTs and all of our waves, but we're still like getting into that world of the UA plugins for sure. But
UA
so
plugins
far,
are what they're
it's
good.
been great using this, and I still have a soft spot in my heart for the old Motu.
I used to have I still have it. I have a Sapphire.
Oh yeah.
What is it called? Sapphire. Let me see. Sapphire 26. Focusrite Sapphire 26. Yeah. So this is what I use on my streaming computer world, which is the server computer. Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of like what you guys what we're streaming from right now. So my UA Apollo goes into the Sapphire, and that connects to the streaming computer, and that puts it out on the internet. And I still love it. I mean, it still works. I got it, like about 7 years ago. Still bangs.
Yeah. They're built great products. Mm-hmm. We were kind of last night figuring out, how do we want to run the audio for this? Do we want to use the UA? Do we want to use or just do a straight USB mic into the computer? And I thought, no, let's just use this. We already got it. It's already set up. Just plug the camera and we're good to go. But I was going to say something I'm thinking of. There's another plugin. We were talking about it as far as the library. I mentioned the Heinbach. Did you happen to check that out yet, or did you?
I listened to some of the sample. I mean, what do you call them? The tracks on. Let me see.
Yeah, on
on Spitfire. Yeah, on their SoundCloud. You know how some composers do it. I mean, it sounds good. I haven't done too much research on it, to be honest. But did you guys get it?
Not yet. We're the same thing. We were going to get it last week, and then we ran into an issue with an update for Acid 9, or no, Acid Pro 10.
Yeah.
And I think we're ready to make the switch and drop, because eMagix, it's just impossible to get a hold.
Well, it's a small company. They bought software from Sony when Sony discontinued it, and they really have very poor customer support. I think they're in Germany, so the time zones are different, and it's just really hard to get a hold of anyone. But we found with DAW, it's best to be flexible, and they really kind of sort of change depending on what style of music you're doing. So when we were doing a lot of loop-based music for like hip hop artists or techno stuff, we would use Sony Acid, which was basically a loop-based recording. But if I had to sit up and record a live, cover band or something, I would look at the Sonar or an audio tracker. It's a lot easier to get multi-channels going.
Yeah, plus, it's funny because when we started years ago, we started utilizing the DAW as a MIDI sequencer, and everything that we put in was MIDI data. And then we transitioned into just the WAV files, working with the actual WAV file and editing each. You might do 20 takes depending on the part, and go through that and kind of finesse that into the track, and then which and it's funny, it's almost kind of going 360 and then going back to now using these libraries. We're finding that we're using MIDI more, which is still cool, because now it's like taking old MIDI sequences off of the Roland XP80. I've got floppy disks of thousands of MIDI songs, so it's like we'll just take those with a USB to floppy drive. It's like, what's a floppy drive? And then just take those the MIDI files, and then we could load those in the Cakewalk, and then and then render them out. We're not up to like you with your 3,000 tracks on
Not yet.
Unbelievable, but maybe we'll run like 20 or 40, render it down, and then drop another 20 to 40 MIDI tracks, and then render that down into the WAV file, and then editing that. But we've been using Adobe Audition for a lot of editing too.
Oh, really?
And a cool plugin, if you haven't, VST, is the what's it called? Stutter Edit 2.
Okay, yeah.
That's an amazing plugin.
What is that? A tape simulator?
Or what is like it? Everything simulator.
It's like a transition generator.
Okay. Gotcha.
And again, it's isotope. It's a multi-effect.
It is.
And but it basically just allows you to just take some standard, whatever you run. It just makes it sound amazing. The beautiful thing, it works with gestures. So each preset can be saved as a gesture.
Yeah.
and you can play them via MIDI to change the effects parameters real time.
Right.
That's okay. Got you.
That's the beauty.
So you could just load a simple drone track and pull up this, and then it's via MIDI. Just play the different notes, and each note is set to a different effects gesture. So it might be like a modulated flange with a choppy effect, and then go from that to a long distorted bit crushed reverb.
Okay. Yeah.
It's all just quick literally at your fingertips to be able to change it. But that's been a lot of fun working with that, designing like future bass sounds or future sounds for sci-fi movies and stuff like that, which is really pretty cool. Yeah,
I know it's so cool how the libraries. Well, going back to the Kontakt libraries, right? So how they progressed so fast from being like from sounding not that good, but now it's like sounds super professional. Yeah. You know, all the orchestral sounds, like it sounds like orchestra, you know, like you know, it's so cool with Spitfire and a lot of other, you know, companies. They're just coming up with libraries left and right. You know, it's bad for my wallet, but
how do you like the Vienna?
Oh, the Vienna Ensemble Pro. So yeah, I use that on my server computer. So just to give the background to people watching, I have a DAW master computer, right, which runs Cubase and nothing else, and well, obviously all the effects and stuff like that. And all my libraries are coming from the server computer that runs the Vienna Ensemble Pro 7. I used to run Pro 6 up until like a month ago when they have finally fixed the 7th version. Anyway, it's great. So I have 256 gigabytes of RAM on a server. I believe, well, it's actually loaded up right now. It's taking about 190 gigabytes of RAM right now. And it has everything loaded up. At any time I can play stuff, you know, like I can, you know, like, you know, I can just go, you know, anytime. Well, yeah, that was loud as heck, but
cool.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, it's really cool. It took me a while to set it all up, but it's definitely helping me. You know,
that's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's always work in process to set up. Like every time I get a new library, I'll have to set up a server project for it. There's like I have to create a new instance for it, and then I'll have to add like MIDI tracks. So it's a ever evolving server in a way.
Now I have a question for you. On that note, you know, you've got this incredible template with basically everything at your fingertips. Yeah. Is that something that you would use on any job, or do you approach each job with its own ensemble and its own?
I use it on every single job. So because sometimes what happens, I will switch from one project to another, right? Like I'm working on a score and then I'm working on a trailer film. I mean trailer music. Thing is, they're both coming from the same server. Like all the libraries are coming from there. So switching between projects only takes like a minute or two.
Yeah.
You know, so it's easy for me. The only difference is the mix. So that's the difference I have in like every project I do. So I mix them differently. You know, like on some film scores, I will, you know, completely change the sound of the orchestra just by mixing it differently. So that's why it doesn't really sound the same. But also at the same time, since I have so many libraries, I can kind of like mix and match different, you know, because they all have different timbres or they all have different sounds, you know. So mixing and matching libraries also creates a completely different sound of the orchestra. You know, so yeah, that's kind of like, that's just, I guess, how I do it. I just have this one, you know, template that works for everything. You know, it's the ring that controls them all. You know, just it's that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it streamlines the process too, because at that point, then you just set up a different master rack, or I don't know if you have multiple mastering templates in there.
Well, I do my mastering in the same project too. So what I been doing for the last few years is like every time I save in Cubase, you can save your inserts, your effects, right, as a channel. So for example, sometimes I would find like a really good sound, like I would create a master, what would you call it, like master channel, right? And it would sound good on something, and I would save the channel with all the inserts, and I would name it like, okay, this sounded good on this, right? And a few years later, if I work on something similar, I can bring that master channel back and just work off of that, so I don't have to start from the beginning. Yeah, that's the whole thing about working on films and stuff and trailer. You just have to move quick. Like, if I don't move quick, I lose my train of thought. I'm ruined, So that's why, I mean, it's my preference. I know a lot of people, they create each template, depending on each new project or whatever. But for me, it's all streamlined. It has to be, be like, I want to jump into a project ready to go, and I know where all of my instruments are, since I've been working with this template for years now. Like I know exactly where everything is. I know exactly what everything sounds like, and I can just start banging out music. That's just my approach to it.
No, that's a great approach.
Yeah. And just knock it out, boom, boom, boom. And then right when like you said, it's like sometimes the process will start something. Maybe if we're because what we were doing at one point was composing everything in one DAW and then mastering it and bringing it into another setup, into another DAW drawing. So now it's like you got that transfer process, and it does kind of hinder your workflow, and it's like you gotta. That's why
and I'll add to that. I think all of us DIY producers, composers, go into the issue of there's the creative half and then there's the technical half, and they don't always work well together. And you can't be overly critical of your initial ideas. You just need to bang them out as quick as you can, because as you said earlier, if you don't, you lose the inspiration or you'll lose the flow. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we face is taking off our technical engineering hat and then putting on our creative musician hat and just going with the flow. So that's why I really can appreciate your template and having everything available.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely took a long time to set it all up, but it's worth it. I mean, at least for me, it's worth it. Yeah, it's just they can do stuff.
Yeah, I think for anybody starting out, that's like a great video to help everyone. Hey, these are some key fundamentals to get your Swiss Army set up.
I know. I do need to make a new video with my latest template just to show it off more, because I feel like I made that video on YouTube like 2 years ago now, and I was more. Yeah, like I was more awkward on camera, and I was just like stuttering a lot. I'm like, okay, so this is what do you do? So now I can do it more. Yeah, like since I've been doing it podcasts and stuff, I'm more comfortable, so I can just I'll probably make a new video soon.
All right,
explain it.
But I think another aspect of it too is the business side of it. I think a lot of people, just these past few weekends, we probably spent more time just honing in on the business side. I think I mentioned to you this past year, we started digging through our back catalog of songs that we produced for artists way back from 2004. And, getting that, I mean, that's almost a separate, I just think you always need to stay busy in some aspect of music, whether it's trying to do the film scoring aspect or producing or remastering and, putting out old material and making it new again, or just putting out period, because it's just sitting in hard drives doing nothing, or to sound design and,
what may be old to you or us might be new to someone that's never heard it before. And so that's getting past that hurdle.
But then we might spend a whole day just on the Library of Congress, just like uploading all these, songs and reaching out to the old artists that we can, saying, hey, but just so you know, we're going to be publishing it and releasing it. It'll be available on all these platforms. We just worked with an old friend, Mike Smith,
Okay.
who lived in Arizona, and he was really he's a bass player, but he was really
not standard,
not your normal. I mean, not your in the box. He was way outside the mold of what you expect for a bass player. I mean, he was lots of chords, lots of great changes in tempo and key, and so we had an opportunity to do some albums with him. And
nice.
Throughout the, we started that project with him, and then we went on to another project because he ended up moving out of state, and we got all these over 20 songs. And then we started working with other artists, and then you kind of forget about it and go back to it. And we're like, holy shit, this is great. Like, why is it still just on our on a CD, that we had backed up, from years ago. So that's been a cool process doing that, but we really, it's hard to like get that balance. So, of you want to like sit down and work and write something and compose, but then you're like, shit, I gotta, make sure it's uploaded to ASCAP and BMI, upload the discography to that, and through CD Baby,
it's
DistroKid,
and it's the unsung part of being here.
And then you have to spend time chasing royalties and stuff like that. I know the trouble. Yeah.
That's the fun stuff that nobody usually talks about.
I know. Not a lot of people talk about it, but it's definitely fun. It's definitely taking a lot of hours of your day, just chasing stuff. Make sure you get paid for stuff. Make sure you you did everything correctly. Your names are spelled right.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that a 9-string acoustic?
This is a 8-string acoustic. That right there is a 9-string electric, and I have another 9-string here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, it is a Schecter. Wow. Okay.
Yep. And then I have another 8-string nylon. Well, basically, this is 8-string with the steel strings. I have another one with nylon strings, and I have another one with steel strings. That's more of a mandolin shape, but it's still an 8-string guitar. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I know. I'm all about like bigger instruments. Like more strings. The more strings, the better.
Yeah. So on the 9-string, how is the string set up? Because I think with the 7-string, it was.
It's basically here. Let me plug it in actually. Yeah, so it's basically goes like this. So it's a B-E-B-E-A-D-G-F.
Okay.
A-E. There you go. So it's basically once I plug it in, it'll be easier to show you with the actual like sounds of it. So it's kind of like you take your 7-string guitar, right? With a low B.
Right.
And then you add 2 more lower strings that are octave, E low E and low B, like ultra low B.
Wow.
So it's a range of it's in range with the 5-string bass in a way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So and I also have
it saves you from having to detune, because back in the day with a 6-string you would have to drop D, lower everything to get those deep notes.
Yeah. But with this one, it's kind of like standard tuning, but also the major third between your what is it, the 4th and the 5th string on a regular 6-string. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That major, so I drop it like down a string, if it makes sense. So basically my standard tuning is warped a little bit. So my major third is not between the 4th and the 5th string. It's between the 3rd and a 4th string.
4th string. Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of like here. Let me plug it in here. So it doesn't. Let me choose a clean signal, not distorted. One sec.
That's cool. Yeah. And then I'm wondering about like the scales, like how would would the same scales apply?
Well, the finger has
they kind of apply in certain way. Let me see. So I don't know if you can see it. So basically, it's like
wow.
Here, let me boost it up a little bit so it's not that low. Let's see.
That's cool.
Anyway, can you guys hear it?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So this is your typical 6-string right here, right? And then it just goes down like.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can do, I can do like drone sounds like. Like that. So it's kind of cool. Like the chords are also fun. Here, let me move the mic a little bit so you guys.
That's so cool, man.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never played one, and
you see this like. Yeah. So there.
Awesome.
That's,
I love like having a guitar with like 3 bass strings on the bottom, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much that's what it is. But also, it doesn't sound like bass. It sounds like a guitar that's tuned low as heck, So that's kind of how it is.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, because I'm listening to your film scores and your use of the guitars in it. I'm like, that is so chunky. It's like such a low, like just, and it's cool because it's like the bass, but at that frequency, but not too low where it's mud, but it's still just like a nice clear.
I think they call it genting nowadays.
Yeah. I don't like to say that word.
You know what? I went to high school when my old drummer in my old band used to try to convey guitar riffs to the guitarist by going jun 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 jun, and that's
it's here. Let me show you what gent is.
Just that.
So it's just gent is basically. It's like that shit, but I honestly don't really like the way I use my 9-string is more of a melodic, I guess, a little bit. Like I don't really go into this whole gent subgenre.
No. Like, let me ask, who would be some of your influences on guitar? Because I was wondering if.
Oh my God, that's a long list. I mean, I grew up listening to Metallica and Creator, Sepultura, Megadeth. So basically any like thrash metal in a way, like guitar-oriented thrash metal. And then I started doing more of getting into like death metal, black metal, just anything metal. There's so many subgenres, So whatever just goes like, like it's just I don't know. I mean, are you guys familiar with Children of Bodom?
Yes.
That band? Yeah. So that was like my main inspiration. I remember because what I did when I was little, I would just play all of their songs. I learned them on like a 6-string guitar or whatever. And like the way I produce, even like when I write orchestral music too, like I'll take metal influences. So because basically it's metal but on strings, and brass and stuff. It's just that I do the same thing that I would have done on metal music, but with orchestra. Yeah. So I mean, I come from mostly like the thrash metal, melodic death metal background, and just pretty much it. I mean, I have a long list of bands to even think of right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here,
we're right there with you, and we've even seen a lot of them live back in the day. So many.
I know there's so many bands. That's the thing about metal music. There's just so much out there, and most of it is so good, and you just want to keep listening to it.
How do you like? I like Gojira.
I listened to some of their tracks. I mean, I like them. It's like here and there. I what do you call it? Like I'm kind of picky about like music that I listen to in a way. It doesn't make sense to me either. Like Gojira is a cool band, not my favorite to be honest. They do repeat themselves a lot. I like more of kind of like novelty, like death metal bands. Like right now, like a good example is like a Whitechapel. Do you guys know that band?
I've seen them on YouTube. I'm not too familiar with all of their tracks, but
like they're kind of like a groovy yet really heavy death metal in a way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's like one of the example I can tell you, like something that I'm been listening to a lot lately. But
have you heard of? I think it's called Igor or Igor or Igor. IGOR, I think it is.
Yeah.
Is it the black metal band from like Ukraine or something?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Yes, I know that one.
Yeah, they're pretty intense. They're tight band too. I mean, their drummer. It's cool because the tracks they sync up. The drummer is synced to a modular system.
Yeah.
And the vocals are running through like this massive, looks like a system 100 setup, and it's just really it's like, man, you think you hear it all, and then you hear some of these new, ideas, and you're like, holy, what a great cool use of different effects and stuff. Production of it's great.
Lately I've also been, since I got my 5-string cello. Do you guys want to see it, like how it sounds like at all, or?
Yeah, and then is that an electric violin?
Yep, it's an electric violin.
I didn't know you play violin. I knew you.
Oh well, I don't really.
Okay.
It's
we have a.
I tried, but no.
Violin that we don't play really
good. I'll grab a note or two off of it, but
Well, here, let me show you the cello. That's actually kind of cool. Let's see.
Cool, yeah, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
Almost reminds me of the fretless.
So with this thing.
Yeah. Remember, John had that fretless electric bass.
Yeah. A friend of ours, a bass player friend of ours, had a fretless electric acoustic upright.
Oh, nice.
Reminds me of that.
Yeah.
It's a cello.
Let me see. Where's
That's so cool.
Ouch. Let me see. So this sounds just like a guitar in a way.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I know, that's like.
That is sick. That is so sick.
That's some stuff Jimmy Page tried to get back in the day, playing with a bow on an electric guitar. But that's amazing.
I know, yeah, that's a definitely good way, and I'm gonna be using it a lot in a horror score that I'm be working on. So that's kind of cool.
Most definitely.
I wonder what an EBow would sound like with that.
That's actually a good idea to try an EBow. I don't own an EBow. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna
like 40
bucks, 50 bucks.
Yeah.
You can probably find Amazon. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, man, that's one instrument, because I grew up learning guitar and playing that, and then I, with the band that D was in, the equipment was always in the basement, so I would find myself just putting the guitar down and sitting behind the drum set, and it's like you learn all these instruments and you're really not the master at it, but you kind of you learn how to get the point across.
Yep.
But yeah,
if you've ever sat behind a kit, it helps you in drum programming, because you can't be hitting the hi-hat on every single 16th note. You need to hit the snare once in a while, and it helps with programming. But going back to what
I always wanted to learn a string, like a cello or a violin.
Yeah,
and I was a little afraid of it. It's a different, because especially the violin, I'm not quite sure how to hold it and get the vibrato.
Yeah.
But
it's quite different. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like it's I'm taking approach. I had to like relearn my whole fingering setup on a cello, because like it's so different from a guitar. Like the tuning is different already. So and then the vibratos are different. The way you like do like passages and stuff, it's so different. But yeah, I mean, it's that's kind of like what I do. I try to learn a new instrument every year. Like I learned, like flute last year, and now it's cello, so I'm trying to get good at it.
Yeah.
That's just the approach, you just gotta know it all in a way.
Yeah, and I think when you wrap your mind around the concept of playing an instrument like that, when you're using those instruments in, say, like Spitfire, it allows you to take that instrument and make it sound more real, like there's a flautist sitting in your room, and learn the dynamics, learn the breath control and circular breathing stuff. But funny thing is, Demian and my younger brother Rory, they're actually in the middle of making a cello from scratch.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
So they're all that's left is put the bridge on, the neck, and then you already got the strings.
Yeah,
nice.
So that'll be interesting. That'll be kind of like a homemade sounding cello, and see how once we get that finished, we'll definitely put it online. You can check it out.
Yeah. Keep me posted about that. I'm always loving the homemade instruments. They're great.
Nice.
Actually, a funny thing. I got a 3D printer. I know we're going on tangent now. I got a 3D printer like a month ago or so, and I've been printing myself some ocarinas and flutes and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Here, let me show you.
No way.
That's it, bro. We need a 3D printer now.
Like this thing right here.
Oh yeah.
So this is fully 3D printed ocarina.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what I want to do with 3D printer too. Like I want to like print more instruments, and I'm actually working on modeling a capo for a 9-string guitar, because just they're not available anymore.
You can't buy one.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, the only thing you could get close to with that is a chopstick and a rubber band. That might work.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So that's like another thing that I've been doing. So that's kind of cool too. It's like,
play it.
I mean, I'm bad at it, but
No.
Did you guys hear it at all? Or
Yeah,
I mean, it works. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it works. Fully 3D printed from scratch. Just.
That's amazing.
I think it's awesome, A, that you have a 3D printer, but B, that somebody took the time to put the blueprints for that up online.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I 3D printed a flute too. The flute, like I have to glue it together and clean it up a little more, but it's also working. It's like good.
Well, speaking about flutes, I've again searching for new sounds, and I found a Native American online called Blue Bear, and he's got a YouTube channel where he makes flutes from scratch with like sugar cane or wood or
nice.
So in a couple of episodes he does some unorthodox. He uses PVC pipe for one of them, and then cardboard for another one. So I've probably made about 8 or 9 different key flutes in variety of materials, and they all sound different. They all have their own intonations, and it's pretty amazing what you can get out of what would otherwise be trash to some people,
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. You can make a musical instrument out of everything out there. You just got to know how to like tune it correctly, and then it's good.
Right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I feel like we're coming up to let me see, what time is it now?
Wow, it's only been 2 hours.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really nice talk with you guys.
Man, you too. Pleasure is all ours, man.
We need to link up. Like we have a good friend, I think I was telling you about him. He's a writer that lives out in LA. Yeah. And he's always inviting us, hey, come over, crash at our place. So we need to let's plan on like meeting face to face in the future.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
A good reason to go. So there you go.
Yeah, there we go. Next time you're in LA, feel free to visit my studio. I'm always open.
Cool. Heck
yeah. Anyway, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. It was really nice talking to you guys. So, tell me how can people find you online? That's a good question.
You can find us on diencephalon.com.
Okay.
Which is I think it's in the chat. I don't know if anyone can see that, but it's DI.
Yep. Yep, I just put it in the video chat right here.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's our production company.
Just did that.
And then a lot of the stuff you heard on Spotify is our like dubstep, EDM stuff, and we do that under the name BeatCircuit.
Okay.
So 2 ways they can get a hold of us. And yeah, we're always down for collaborating and just spreading the love, man.
Yeah.
All right.
The fun of music, man. This has been great.
Yep. Yeah, that's
This has
what
been a
it's all
blast.
about. It's been a blast, I know, right? Blast on the BlastCast episode 9. All right, guys. So this will be available on YouTube in about a week or so. Right now, it's available on twitch.tv/TimBlastMusic. Thank you guys for tuning in. We had quite a few viewers, actually, more than usual. Yep. Thank you so much, guys, for coming to the podcast.
It's been our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
All right. Everybody have a great day, okay?
You too, buddy.
All right. Thanks.